let's say you run a machine shop and you're either still doing everything on paper and you've heard about things like ERP, business software, but you're thinking, you know what? That's not for me. What we've been doing for years still works fine. No worries. Or you have an ERP and you've gone through all the pain and it's never gotten you where you wanted to be. And you're saying, got my fingers burned once, don't want to mess with it. Well, what if I told you I know a guy who also ran a machine shop, and then based on what he learned and developed for his own business, went into the ERP business, the business software business, and came up with solutions specifically targeted at what you do. Well, stay tuned. We'll tell you all about it here on Manufacturing Talks.
Welcome to Manufacturing Talks with Jim Vinosky. Industry has a million cool stories, and Jim talks to the movers and shakers who are making them happen. Let's dive in.
Welcome to Manufacturing Talks. I'm Jim Vinosky, your host. We're sponsored by DYS Media, and you'll hear a little more about them halfway through the show. And on the show, happy to have Paul Van Metre. He is co-founder at ProShop. Welcome, Paul.
Hey, Jim. Good to be here with you. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm excited to talk with you today.
Glad to have you on. Quickly tell us a little bit about ProShop. Then I want to hear a little more about your background.
Sure. So ProShop we call it a digital manufacturing ecosystem. It is essentially a comprehensive shop management tool that mostly machine shops, although we do serve others very in similar spaces, but machine shops that are doing discrete, complex precision manufacturing in regulated industries use ProShop to go completely paperless, honestly, truly, completely paperless, and have their full workflow from quoting jobs through invoicing, including all of their quality management requirements and documentation and inspection reports and tool management, everything built into one paperless web-based system. So it really, really moves the needle and becomes the backbone of their companies typically. Mm-hmm. And we developed it at our own machine shop that my partners and I started and ran right out of college for about 17 years and just built it for our own needs. And it turns out that a lot of shops have the same needs that we had. So right. We sold the machine shop about 7 years ago or so and started ProShop as the software company. And it's been a wild, crazy ride ever since. But my passion for it just gets deeper and deeper every year. It's so rewarding. It's so much fun. I believe so strongly in manufacturing in North America, and it's essential that it thrive because it is the bedrock of our economies. And so that's a little bit about the company, and I guess sort of about me as well. I guess a little more on that. My partners and I went through a really cool hands-on sort of manufacturing engineering program in college called the Vehicle Research Institute, and we got to design and build race cars. And cool. We had a machining lab. We just fell in love with machining and decided to start a shop right out of college. So wow. One of my partners was a little older and he had enough equity in his house to take out a second mortgage, and we bought a CNC machine and opened a tiny little 2,000 square foot warehouse space and started knocking on doors looking for work. And 17 years later, we sold it with about 75 people, over 30 machines, ISO and AS certified for both manufacturing and engineering work. And we were doing really cool projects, but we had a greater calling to help the industry with our software.
So I want to drill even further because I've got an 18-year-old son, just turned 18 a few days ago, graduating this year, kind of leans toward the technical, but isn't quite sure what he wants to do. And your story is just enthralling to me. So, what was it back when you were young that made you look in that direction of the program you mentioned? Sure. And then tell us, and maybe I need to follow up with another question once you've talked about that, but I want to hear about then. I mean, that's a big change to be running a successful shop, and now all of a sudden I'm going to go do software. Right. So start with young and then let's progress.
Sure. Well, I was a car guy from the earliest ages. Yeah. I loved cars. I loved working on cars, buying and selling cars. My first car was a Carmen Ghia. My second car was a TVR, which is a super obscure British handmade sports car. Uh-huh. And I started a mechanical engineering program at Boston University because I figured that from what I could tell, mechanical engineering was the closest thing I could get to, becoming like an automotive engineer. And I want to design and build design cars. I did that first year. It was so boring. I sat in lecture halls with 300 other students getting, math and physics and all the boring, but important things. And when I came home for Christmas break, my freshman year, I was laying on the couch reading a bunch of car magazines that my mom had collected as I was at school. And I opened up Automobile Magazine and I read about this program way across the country in Bellingham, Washington, called the Vehicle Research Institute.
Wow.
And on the spot, before I was even halfway done with the article, I remember calling to my mom and I'm like, Mom, I'm moving to Washington and transferring to this tiny school out there. And I basically came sight unseen, and it was the most incredible experience I ever had. So unfortunately, that program no longer exists. It closed a couple of years ago after 40 plus years in existence. But there are programs like that around the country, very hands-on, mixture of theory, like an accredited engineering program, but still very hands-on with manufacturing. And quite honestly, I think, there's, of course, a deep need for mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, people that do that work. But applying or having a combination of that learning plus hands-on makes them such better engineers, right? Yeah. There's now electric versions of the race cars we built. It was called Formula SAE, for those listening. It's a national or international program sponsored by the Society of Automotive Engineers. They have off-road versions called Mini Baja. They have other competitions. And basically, universities design and build cars every year and then go compete with other universities. So it's incredibly immersive, super hands-on. And the students that graduate from those programs not only have their class and book learning, but they have, deep experience for a 21 or 22-year-old in actually making things, testing, doing real work, working on teams. And it's just an unbelievable experience. And they come into the workforce way more ready to hit the ground running and be useful engineers.
Yep. So during that program, is that when you then got to thinking about the shop end of things? I mean,
we did.
Went into it thinking you're going to build cars, but it's also a leap then to just making parts, which is a whole animal to itself, right?
I have shared this on a couple other shows. So during our probably senior year, first of all, the team that we had was a very small, very close team, absolutely loved working together. And we said, you know what, we'd rather not scatter to the winds and just go get jobs at whatever companies. We'd like to keep working together. So we actually said, and we'd really love to start a small niche car company. So, but we didn't have nearly enough money to do that. So we said, you know what, though, we're going to need the same machines, processes, equipment, people, infrastructure as a machine shop, which we already had quite a bit of experience with in our shop environment. We said, why don't we start a machine shop? And super naively, we thought that after only maybe a year or two, we'd have enough free time and free cash flow to start building prototype cars and then go find some investors and really make a go of it with the car company. So naive. Running a machine shop, especially a startup shop, is the most intense, difficult kind of business in the world. I will go to my grave saying so.
I believe it.
So at the end of the week, there was no free time. There was no free cash flow. We were we didn't pay ourselves for the first year, right?
Yeah.
It was intensive. And we never built any prototype cars, but we kept growing this machine shop to be bigger and bigger and bigger than we ever expected, and really loved it. And for the majority of the time, really only a couple of years in. So we knew we wanted to kind of have a paperless shop from day one, but we didn't have any resources. So we just started using Excel, and we'd put a computer out at each machine, and we'd have these shared Excel workbooks where we'd have different tabs for our setup notes and our inspections and our tool lists and our work instructions and whatever else. And that worked fine as we were small, but as we started to get a little bigger, we're like, this is not going to scale, right? You have the sheet open. I need to open it. Hey, Kelsey, can you close that sheet so I can open it?
Right. Yeah.
And so as we started to do research on real shop ERP systems, we were just really disappointed by what these salespeople were showing us, because none of them did the things that a shop needs to do every day.
Right.
Actually out on the shop floor, executing jobs, tools, inspections, fixtures, G-code management, all that kind of stuff. They were fine on the front, in the office side. They did estimating and accounting and packing slips, but that middle section was sorely missing. So we hired a software developer and just started building something for ourselves with zero intentions of selling it to anyone else. But about 8 years later, our biggest machine shop customer, one of their employees came and worked for us for a few months on the weekends. And he was like, "This is incredible software. Where did you buy it? We want to buy it at our shop." And we said, "No, we built it." And so anyway, he went back to their owners and they approached us, asked us to sell it to them, which at first we said no, because we weren't a software company. But then we eventually said yes. And within months, it completely revolutionized their shop. And they became our first customer, and kind of the rest is history, I guess. We
So
really...
it's such an amazing story. I mean, the twists and turns you have that you never would have thought about for yourself until it's
Sure.
upon you, and there's this opportunity, and you kind of take that crazy turn into something completely different. Now, so I love that story about developing it for yourselves, because that's one of the huge strengths I'm sure you bring to the table, is your long experience doing the very things that your customers are doing, and encountering the same problems they're having. So you've got everything that you built specifically for your business that applies to them. But the other thing I noticed in reading about your company is you're focused especially on the small and medium sized manufacturers.
Correct.
And so tell me a little bit about what specifically with your approach serves their needs particularly well.
Sure. Well, I mean, I'd say even large companies have the same needs. They just have a lot more stacked on top. But the base level needs are universal. If you have a machine shop with one person or a machine shop with 200 people, which is kind of the more or less the upper limit of where we're kind of playing today, they need to, first of all, understand all the requirements of the work they're quoting, make sure that's well covered and they're going to make a decent margin on it. They need to then ingest that work, do contractual, regulatory compliance and risk assessments. Make sure that work is flowed smoothly into their planning and engineering processes, making sure all the customer flow downs and regulatory flow downs are being met, and then, buy everything they need to buy, and then successfully, send that out into the shop floor, into the manufacturing environment, and have the greatest chance of success of that work being done on budget, on time, with low scrap rate, and, making a margin on it. And so, we have, through our, because our shop had all those exact needs. So we built very specific, deep tools to, optimize different parts of that process, which is a level that most ERPs or shop management tools just don't even get into. Right. So, and we do bring super deep experience. All of our training and implementation staff are all from shop floor environments as well. So as we've grown, we've made sure to retain, we're not just hiring young people out of college that, don't know anything about manufacturing, or that worked in the software industry and don't know also anything about manufacturing. So that's been pretty important to us. And so bringing best practices as well as really efficient software tools, we think is a combination that seems to be resonating with many shops.
Good. We should take a step back. Obviously our show caters to manufacturers, and most of us are going to know what you're talking about, but clearly you're talking about this software that serves the needs of the shops that you cater to. But you refer to ERP, that's Enterprise Resource Planner. Can you just tell people specifically what that is and why?
Yeah, and I'll throw out several other acronyms if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah.
So ERP is very traditionally Enterprise Resource Planning. It's sort of a tool for planning out the operations of an enterprise. Most systems are quite heavily kind of leaning on the accounting side, whereas we lean much more heavily on the operations, quality, and more lately, even the cybersecurity requirement side.
Sure.
So,
Yep.
On our shop floor operations, we are getting into more of category of software that we call MES, or manufacturing execution systems.
Mhm.
So that's basically making sure that shop floor operations, manufacturing operations, are executed as smoothly and efficiently as possible. On the quality management side, which is QMS, quality management systems, we embed all the way down to the DNA level of ProShop our QMS modules and functions. And we do that in a way that is very unique. So that's QMS. So basically our clients, I've mentioned regulatory a few times now.
Mhm.
The majority of our clients are at very least ISO 9001 certified. Many of them are AS 9100 or ISO 1345 if they're serving the medical device industry. And then more and more of them, as it's becoming closer and closer to law, are needing to, if they serve the defense space, they're going to need to be CMMC certified and compliant, which is the cybersecurity maturity model certification. So our developers are, have been for the last couple of years and still deeply engaged in building really sophisticated and deep cybersecurity compliance features to help our customers meet that requirement as well.
So yeah, I mean, that's really interesting too, is that whole regulatory side that a lot of people don't think about. We're going to take a break here. You made reference to, some of the broader things out there, and we're going to talk about that here in a minute. But we're going to hear from our sponsor, DYS Media, and then we'll be right back with Paul.
DYS Media, your digital media relations agency. Public relations, website design, digital marketing. You get found by the customers and talent who need your solutions. You get media placements in top publications, the best job candidates coming to your website, a digital presence that gets you found by the right people. Call 616-298-8798 to get started today.
Welcome back. Thank you to DYS Media, our sponsor. And we're here with Paul Van Meter. He is co-founder at ProShop. They provide software services to small and medium-sized machine shops primarily. We were talking about those kinds of software, ERP and things like that. You made reference to some that focus on accounting much more heavily. And
Sure.
I know it from my experience, there are all kinds out there that try to do everything for everyone. So, if I think about an SAP, one of the big names
Sure.
out there, that's kind of what they do. They try to serve every need out there, and some would argue they don't do any of them quite well. I didn't say that out loud, did I? So tell us, you've got that focus in a specific corner of the business, and you've got experience with that. And so tell us how that sets you apart from some of your competitors, even the really huge ones out there.
Yeah, I mean, we are very focused on being really good at our niche. We are never going to be an ERP system for distributors, for food manufacturers.
Mm-hmm.
We are largely precision metal, although not exclusively. I went into a shop last year in Chicago that I was scheduled to go visit, but I didn't know anything about them. And I walk in and there's not a CNC machine in the place. And I'm like, where's all the machines? And they were a cable harness manufacturer. So they were making aerospace grade cable harnesses, and also for automotive. And, but they were using ProShop. They loved it. Was it perfect? Definitely not, but it was way better than what they used before. And they had of course, deep needs for quality and, regulatory compliance because they're also AS certified. So anyway, with our background, with our experience in sort of that type of manufacturing, that is just what we're experts in, and, a system like SAP, it is a vast system. They serve companies, in the tens of thousands or more of employees. I can't even imagine the complexity of trying to run an organization like that, let alone build software for an organization like that. So, hats off to them for doing that. But no, we just we're going to always stay in our lane. I think companies that try to serve too many industries and too many types of companies kind of get lost on being really good at what they need to be good at. We do not want to be a jack of all trades, master of none. We want to be a master of just, a few very small types of manufacturing, because again, those machine shops and similar fabricators and other companies like that, they, as I said before, and I'll say it so many times, they are the foundation of the economy. Everything around you, around me, starts with machining one way or another. Starts with metal, right? Yep. Even I saw someone post on LinkedIn about foundries. Foundries is like literally taking, the metal out of the ground and turning it into metal. But even their process requires machined parts. All the machines to do the digging, all the machines to melt the metal, all that. All are made out of machines. So
all the plastic pieces around you in your house were molded by things that were machined in a machine shop.
All the books behind you were printed on printing presses made by all machined parts, So, yep. So we just believe so deeply that industry is crucial, and we want to help companies do that better. I was just earlier at the beginning of this week, I was out at a customer out in Eastern Washington, small 6 to 8 man shop. And, the owner of that company bought the business. He was an employee for many years, and the owner wanted to retire. So he decided that he wanted to take it over. I got nothing but respect for someone that starts a machine shop, because, I've been in those shoes. I know how incredibly difficult it can be. When he first reached out to me a couple of months ago, he'd been a customer for about a year, but he had really been screwed over by his last ERP, who basically wanted him to rebuy the software after he took it over from the previous owner. Wow. And sent a cease and desist letter to them. Just unconscionable. I don't know how in your corporate boardroom you decide that that's the best business policy, right?
Yeah.
Nonetheless, he also really wanted to get AS9100 certified, because he really wanted to expand out into other markets. At the time, he was pretty short on work. And he was telling me, he's like, Paul, I feel like I'm failing. I feel like I'm failing my employees. I want to make sure I have enough work to give them a full 40 hours, because they're the breadwinners for their families. And I'm like, dude, we're going to help you get certified. We're going to do it super fast. And then introduce you to companies that need that, have work, because we routinely get approached by OEMs that say, we've noticed that our vendors that have ProShop are better performing than vendors that don't. And we'd like more vendors that use ProShop. So can you send us your list of AS9100 certified customers, which is a wonderful place to be matchmaker.
Absolutely.
So anyway, but it just, being there, in his shop with his team and him for a couple of days, just really underscored for me how important it is that these kinds of companies thrive, and how difficult it is, and why we are doing what we are doing to help make their lives better. Our mission statement is basically to help companies, by deeply understanding their problems, to help them thrive and their communities thrive. Nice. Right. And we have their communities as part of our mission statement.
Yeah. So your buddy out there, he had a pretty clear indication that he didn't have the right ERP, because they were screwing him, trying to get tens of $1,000s out of a customer that's been around for years. But there are a lot of folks out there who do have the wrong thing, and maybe don't even realize how badly they're being served. So, if you could talk to all the shop owners out there who might not have the right solution and should be looking at what you have to offer, what are the indicators that they should be looking at that say, maybe I do need to be back in the market on this thing?
Yeah. I want to be super clear. Like in that case, I feel like that company they're being unethical. Really obtuse. Like who tries to sue their customer to buy their software or whatever. But there's a lot of good companies out there that have decent products and try really hard and have good customer support. But I'd say if, for an indication that a system is not perfect for your shop, would be a few things. One is on the support side, you send in a request or a need for some help, and it takes, days to get back to you. Or the people that get back to you really have no idea about the software or about your business. They just will try to help you with some help articles. Here's a link. Here's something. So the support side is essential. On the actual function side, if you find yourself using much, if any, Excel spreadsheets, that's a good indication that the software is not a good fit.
Right.
If you are continually fighting fires because you ran out of cutting tools, or you lost the G code, or the fixture is nowhere to be found, or the material didn't show up on time, or your setups are taking long because the paper work instructions that travel with the job got lost last time, and you have to redo it again and figure out re-engineer the wheel half the time. Or if you're using UPS overnight shipping charges to expedite things in because you're scrambling at the last minute because you don't realize you have a special thread gauge that you thought you had, or you didn't realize you needed. If any of those things are happening, then you probably don't have the right system. But that is absolute business as usual for almost every shop out there, right? Every day is a firefight. Every day is putting out trying to placate the most angry customers that you're the latest on, and having employees that are churning over because it's such a frustrating experience to work at your shop. Or they could be there for years and years, and they're really kind of set in their ways, and they're fine with their paper-based processes, and they have a lot of tribal knowledge up in their heads. But you as an owner fear the day that they retire, because a huge amount of intellectual property is going to disappear, right?
Yeah. Those
are all indications that you don't have the right system.
So related to that, and you actually answered a couple of the points that I was thinking about on this one, but there are fewer and fewer, obviously, but there are still those folks out there who have nothing, right? Who don't have any ERP at all and are totally paper-based. What should those folks be thinking about as far as, why ProShop has something they should be paying good money for?
Yeah, it's a great question. And we get the objection all the time. This is expensive. Like I can't afford to spend $8,000 a year for software, which is about our entry level cost. And my I guess thing that I would have them think about is you wouldn't try to run a modern machine shop today with only manual machines, right? Manual mill, manual lathe. A CNC machine is much more expensive. Absolutely. Is it going to make you, 100 times more money per hour than a manual machine, or be able to work all night by itself because it's running unattended? Absolutely. Can you not even make the geometries that you need to make with a manual machine than you can with a modern 5-axis? Of course. So software is similar. It is an investment, but the right software will absolutely have an ROI, return on investment, many, many, many times more than it costs. Like there's absolutely no doubt about it. I mean, just some of the things I already alluded to with fighting fires because you don't have the right tools or gauges, or you lost the work instructions, or your setups are taking too long, or you're scrapping parts at too high at a rate. Those are expenses that most shop owners think are normal, but they are not normal. Like you can eliminate a lot of those expenses. We routinely, for anyone that follows us or goes to our website, we have dozens of videos of shop owners talking about their experience. And one of the questions we always ask is, what amount of sort of additional efficiency or throughput, literal dollar revenue of throughput, do you see after using ProShop? And the most common answer, and we certainly don't prompt them for it, but the most common answer they say is we've seen about a 25% increase in throughput. So if you're a 10-person shop doing $1 or $1.5 million a year, and you can ship an additional $250,000 the next year because you invested 8 or 10 grand, I think that's probably the best money you can spend, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You might not even be able to get that much additional revenue by adding another machine to your floor, which costs 100 grand,
Yeah,
right?
right.
So anyway, I think a lot of shops are tripping over dollars to pick up dimes when they, and I totally get it. You know, it's a big leap of faith, and it's especially a big leap of faith because by and large, the ERP industry has such an incredibly terrible reputation.
Yes.
With crappy
and I can tell you that
products
from a couple other
Yeah.
business areas that's the case, not just for machine shop owners.
And I shouldn't say crappy, ill-fitting products.
Yes. Yeah.
And not
Well
well
put.
implemented, not well supported. And you know, if you just Google ERP implementation failure rates, it's like well over 50%, 50 to 75% failure rate.
Right.
Right. It's crazy. So they should be skeptical. But the right system that's well designed for the types of business that it needs to perform can be a game changer. So, and again, we're very nichey. We're not gonna, you know, if you're a food manufacturer, please don't call us. And I will also mention, because it's worth saying, you know, most ERP failures, I'm sure there's responsibility on both sides, the vendor and the customer.
Sure.
But it is one of the hardest types of software to implement. You know, basically something that is the backbone of your whole company. Everyone in the company needs to use it all day, every day. At least in the case of ProShop. And so it is a big, heavy lift. And managing change management is a vast, complex topic. You know, and so we first of all, we try very hard, and we're even leaning in more to it. We just hired sort of an expert on change management and like the human side of that to help create materials and guidance and instruction for our customers to get better at that on their end. Because we also do not have 100% success rate. You know, I'll be the first to say that.
Sure.
But when we fail, it is largely because we accepted a customer that was not a good fit, or they were not prepared for the change. Right. Occasionally there's like a mismatch on features, or like, I really need this feature. And it was like, well, we told you during the demo process that this is how we do it. That's pretty rare because we're very transparent in our demoing, but by and large, it's people that get excited by, you know, what it all looks like and the vision, but they aren't there to support their team and talk about what it's like to have this big of a change in everyone's daily work process, which is scary. You know, the whole book, Who Moved My Cheese, you know,
Right.
It's like very alive and well in many companies. So we are very selective as well. We are trying to refine our process of what we call our discovery calls. So when a company approaches us, and we're in the very fortunate position that 98% of our sales are people that are approaching us. They're not us approaching them. It's inbound leads from our marketing or from videos or from referrals or whatever. But we're very, very selective to ask questions about what the company is like, what the leadership is like, how do they approach conflict, all sorts of things like that. And we will be the first to say, you seem like great people, but I don't think there's a fit here. There's probably a better system out there for you.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
All right, one last question. What are
Yes,
the
sir.
next big things down the road for ProShop?
Well, I can't give away everything, but we are
No secrets.
we, as I alluded to, we're going deep on the cybersecurity and CMMC side. So we'll be releasing some new features and some new products to help make the management of controlled and classified information about as easy as can possibly be, which is an incredibly expensive, complex part of the defense industrial base, risk is controlling that. We have, we'll continue. Our biggest team in our company, the biggest number of employees, is our developer team. We have twice as many people in our developer team as we do in our sales team. right? At least. Yeah, 3 times bigger. So, so we're just constantly coming out with new features. ProShop is becoming more of a platform where we have, our API is open to integrations with other software products. So we have products like Datanomics that has machine monitoring. We have a couple others that are now, sharing data with ProShop. Quoting on the paperless parts side is an integration we are deepening, and just more and more things like that. We want to become even more of the platform that runs the whole company. And if we are not going to get into a specific niche of the shop that there's a better solution, we'll integrate with that. So the client's experience can be just even more seamless with everything that they need to do.
Excellent. Good stuff. Where do people find you?
Well, we have 2 websites that I like to share. Our main one is ProShopERP.com. But for more fun, go to LoveYourERP.com. It is, we made that a couple of Valentine's days ago. It's all pink and hearts and like sappy quotes. It's just hilarious. But we did it with a bit of seriousness in mind, because the words love and ERP just do not go together in the same sentence.
Too true.
But as we started talking to clients, we kept hearing, I love ProShop. I love ProShop. And we're like, really? You love it? Okay. Well, that's nice to hear. Maybe we should anyway. So loveyourERP.com is a little bit of silly fun.
Wonderful. I'm going to have to look that up myself. I haven't seen that, so I'll check it out and let you know what I think. Paul Van Metre with ProShop, thank you for joining us here at Manufacturing Talks.
Thank you, Jim. It's really been a pleasure.
And thank you all. Thanks to our sponsor, DYS Media. Look for us every first and third Tuesday of every month for new shows. Check us out on YouTube and your podcast outlets. Follow us, like us, share us. We're here to help you. Thanks again. So long. Beautiful.
Awesome, Jim.
Thanks for tuning in to Manufacturing Talks with Jim Vinoski. Watch for new episodes dropping on the first and third Tuesdays of every month.